if we can get off the current topic, please. The Trump regime is apparently trying to monitor California's elections. Not like the United States government didn't already monitor basically every election, but like he specifically wants to do that for not great reasons. And we're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk about the fan art section, because Renee has decided that they want to contribute to the fan art channel by having a version of me that has a tail that is as long as my intestinal tract. And you know what? I'm not sure if I'm okay with that. I'm not 100% certain if this is something that I should have canonized in lore. I don't know if the tail stretching to the length of the human intestinal tract should be canon, but, well, it is now, I guess. So thank you, Renee. I appreciate your fan art. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, Stoff says, are you more okay with that art or my art? Stoff, I wish not to answer that, like, at all. KK. Don't say the third letter. Anyway, so the Trump monarchy said yesterday that the Justice Department will monitor polling sites in California and New Jersey ahead of the November 4th election after requests by the Republican Party officials in those states. It's a blunt instrument meant to suppress turnout for Proposition 50, which would allow Governor Newsom to balance the Texas redistricting for more red seats with California blue. Okay. That although election monitoring by the Justice Department is not uncommon, it will likely heighten tensions as voters weigh in on some of the nation's most closely watched races. President Trump has pushed the Justice Department to pursue parts of his agenda, including going after his political enemies, which has eroded its traditional independence. Mr. Trump also blamed his 2020 election loss on rigged voting, although there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Voter fraud is exceedingly rare, but Trump and other Republicans have since claimed it is rampant, particularly voting by mail, which is how most Californians vote. Democrats have called the argument a ruse for voter suppression. Jesus fucking Christ. This administration has made no secret of its goal to undermine free and fair elections, said Brandon Richards, a spokesperson for Governor Gavin Newsom in California. Deploying these federal forces appears to be an intimidation tactic meant for one thing, to suppress the vote. Okay, so let's talk about this. Why would you, as a Republican lawmaker or president, want fewer people voting? Or rather, why would you do things that would potentially lead to fewer people wanting to vote? When you start saying publicly, we're going to be watching the polling locations very, very closely, it doesn't inspire confidence in it. It does a couple of things. You take independent people who already there's a struggle with getting them to go out and vote, and it makes them feel like the elections from beforehand weren't already well regulated. They weren't already being looked at correctly. And then for people who are already planning on voting, they feel like those votes may not be quite as safe for them to cast as they did before. Because when you say, hey, we're going to be monitoring these polling locations more, if you get a bunch of people who are scared of Trump, because I've seen this shit with like people in my audience who have anxiety issues or issues going out with people or issues with confrontation. When they hear that Trump's cracking down on X thing, the first thing that they do is panic or be afraid in some way, shape, or form. And whether or not those fears are valid, that's not the conversation for right now. The conversation for right now is that irrespective of how valid those fears may or may not be, any barrier you put up to those kinds of people is an extra barrier that they didn't have before. And everyone you can put up, legitimate or otherwise, makes it harder and harder for that person to wake up in the morning and go out and do what they need to do. We have I'm just a little guy syndrome, okay? Just a little guy syndrome. You're just a little guy over there. At least you're Canadian. You have an excuse. Of course you do. It's because you're Canadian. It's because you're Canadian. Dr. Bree says, I have a question for the trans critters in here. Is it normal for your chest to itch after a week of HRT, or am I just psyching myself up? I'm not trans, but I've heard that that's somewhat okay. Robbie says, not me. We're just men. Just innocent men. We're just innocent men.
Well, are they coming to watch or intimidate? Sparks are flying between Republicans and Democrats here in California after the Department of Justice announced plans to send federal election monitors to 5 California counties for the upcoming November election. The DOJ...
It's not just me. I'm not the only one saying that this could be problematic. Fucking NBC over here is also saying the same thing, pointing out that, hey, you get people who already struggle with going out and fucking voting, and you try to intimidate them. Shit's crazy. Here, let's throw that over to the little monitor so that my druid does not do a die. And...
says state Republicans requested these monitors. NBC Bay Area's Christy Smith explains why.
The U.S. Department of Justice says it will monitor polling sites in 5 California counties to ensure transparency, ballot security, and compliance with federal law. They also say it comes at the request of California's Republican Party.
Of course it does.
John Dennis is a San Franciscan who's on the board of directors for the California Republican Party.
It's important to have elections that people have confidence in. So there have been concerns in several counties. The Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division was made aware of those concerns and decided to monitor the activities in those counties.
Monitors will be sent to Kern, Riverside, Fresno, Orange, and Los Angeles County. The department also notes it regularly deploys staff to monitor compliance in elections across the country.
This move by Donald Trump has nothing to do with election integrity and everything to do with election intimidation and manipulation.
But Democrats, including State Senator Scott Wiener, are questioning the move, saying it seems to be more about politics than protecting votes.
California knows how to run elections, and we run them very, very well. And this is the Trump administration just trying to come in to intimidate voters, to scare people, so that they don't go to vote because they don't want Prop 50 to pass.
Early voting is already underway. The key issue, Prop 50. That's the proposal that would allow the governor to redraw California's congressional districts to boost Democrats' chances of picking up seats in the midterm elections.
If we can intimidate a bunch of people so that they don't go out and vote on this thing that will do nothing but benefit them, maybe we'll be able to win that way. Like, you could have easily just not announced that you were doing it. Like, okay, look, here's how you handle this in a way that does not intimidate voters. Here's how you handle this. You let the voting happen normally, and when the announcement comes out and somebody questions it, you point out that you actually did send people in to monitor those elections, and that you know for a fact that that election was done free and fair, because you did the homework. You, Donald Trump, did the homework. Then people can have a lot more confidence. People have less confidence and people have more fear when instead your strategy is to go, well, if people want to vote on this thing that I don't like, then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them that my goons are going to be going out there and watching what they're doing. They're going to be watching them very carefully. They're going to be watching them with their eyes. Very good eyes, best America's got. And they're going to be ones that I sent there, so you know they're going to be the best of the best. Like, when you do that shit, anybody who's already concerned about the actions of Donald Trump is going to be even more concerned soon as you do that. But I feel like that's kind of the point, right? I feel like that's kind of the point. Because your goal here, Donald Trump, is definitely not to have a free and fair election. Your goal is more so to be able to have an intimidation campaign. You see, in Russia and in China, there are one-party states. Russia and China love the idea of a one-party state. They love the idea that people can't question whether or not they had a free and fair election, because of course they did. Just the most popular party always won every time, without fail. The most popular party being the one currently in power every time, without fail. They love the idea that you might vote at all, because every time somebody votes, the vote will just happen to be for the party. And then it's definitely a democracy. You see, Russia's definitely a democracy. It is. 100%. How do we do that? Well, by taking over the election, of course. Exactly. Trump loves the authoritarian playbook. He's loved the authoritarian playbook for a long fucking time. He adores it. So it makes sense that he would start slowly borrowing tactics. Well, I can't just make the people not vote, so what can I do? Oh, I know what I can do. I can make them afraid to vote. That's what I can do. I can make them afraid to vote. They might not want to vote as much, you see. I think that would be fine. Because I think that if you're afraid to vote, you're not a real American. And if you're not a real American, I don't want you voting. Do you want non-Americans voting? I don't think you do. I think you know what's best for America, and that's having Americans voting in American elections, and real Americans are not afraid of voting. Biskamy says, of course, the president would want a free and fair election. He's taking over to make sure that it's free and fair. For sure. Yeah. He's just making sure it's free and fair. And the more Donald Trump gets involved, the more freer and fairer it is. Duh.
Governor Newsom's office
Naki Bree says, why target deep blue states in that case and not purple states? It'd be much easier to do in purple states because the goal is to try to wrest power away from the deep blue states. So the Republican Party wants nothing more than for California to turn into a swing state. Democrats would never win another fucking election if California could be turned into a proper swing state. Just like if states like Georgia became proper blue states instead of swing states that usually end up going red, it would be impossible for Republicans to ever have a foothold. Republicans get a foothold because of gerrymandering and Texas existing. That's it. That's it. They get Texas, they get Alaska, and that gives them all the fucking landmass they need to do the whole land vote thing. They lose swing states, they lose. They convert blue states to swing states, they win.
also reacted to the federal monitors today, posting on social media, in part, the U.S. Department of Justice has no basis or business to interfere in this election, adding this is solely about whether California amends our state constitution.
They're not going to find very many people because 81% of the folks who voted in the 2024 election did so by mail.
San Jose State Professor Emeritus and political analyst Larry Gersten says he understands why the move might raise questions.
Just to say, well, we want to make sure everything's okay, when everything's been okay anyway, makes one wonder if there's a reason other than checking on clarity and
yeah, it's two parts. It's intimidation, and it is an attempt to undermine certain types of votes, like early votes or mail-in votes. Donald Trump has been waging a war on early and mail-in voting since fucking 2017. He really wants a world where the point of early voting is to simply show that you're not a true American. He wants a world where only the good and fit go out and vote on the correct day. Because Republicans win more often when that's the case. The more people, most terrifying thing to the Republican Party is that when more people vote, more Democrats win. And that's been a pretty universal constant for a while. The more people you get to vote in an election, the more likely the Democratic Party wins. That freaks them the fuck out. It really does. Pace says, what happens if the Supreme Court throws out the Voting Rights Act? When? Why are we saying when? Shouldn't we be using the term if? Or are we just full doomer now? Do we just accept that there is no point to anything? Because if you use the term when, then you already have an answer to your question. So Star Wars has, I believe it was Star Wars, that has the quote that rebellions are built on hope. I hope the Supreme Court does not fuck over the Voting Rights Act. I hope that. I'm going to continue to hope that. And as long as I hope that, language like when this goes away will not enter my vernacular, personally. But if the Voting Rights Act gets undermined by the Supreme Court, then at that point we can start having conversations about how do you change the management of America when elections are no longer an option. But that's not a conversation we're going to be having on my channel for, hopefully, obvious reasons. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Blitzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.